Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe in a feeling of freshness, of energy, of resourcefulness. And as you exhale, give permission to release. As you slow down that outward breath, give permission to let go of any feelings of frustration, anger, or uncertainty. Just allow it to melt away and leave your body as tiny crystals of ice melting into the atmosphere. Breathing in relaxation and exhaling tension. Each breath takes you to the next level of depth, deeper down to a place where change can take place in wonderful and positive ways. And when you breathe in for deeper. And as you breathe out, allow the body to settle, not by forcing relaxation, just by allowing that whatever tension is there, you can let go of that tension. And each outward breath allows a little more to let go with each breath. And sometimes the mind becomes busy, especially when life is in transition. Loose ends, unfinished conversations, perhaps potential or unresolved conflicts. And every now and then, there are situations that feel unfair. Times when someone else's behavior reveals something about them that perhaps you would never choose to become yourself. But there are silver linings, because moments like these are also thresholds. And there are points in life where a person moves from one chapter into another. And sometimes that's at a key milestone like a certain birthday or a new year, or moving from one place to live to another. And with your eyes closed, just feel the heaviness of your eyelids getting heavier and more relaxed. And I wonder if you can imagine something familiar to you. Not a house, not an apartment. I want you to imagine perhaps something familiar from a dream or a thought or an idea. I want you to imagine wearing clothing that is warm and finding yourself high up in the mountains of the Pyrenees. Imagine walking on the border between France and Spain. And perhaps you could imagine rocky paths, peaks, valleys, snow and ice, and sometimes high up lakes. This is the kind of place where people walk for days at a time, but I want you to imagine you have the stability of a mountain goat. As you walk there high up in the mountains, I want you to connect with that feeling of stability, and yet feel that you are moving forward to a clear destination. And every now and then, just allow yourself to follow a trail, explore what you explore, and then return to your route that moves you forward. And I want you to imagine sensations there in the mountains. Imagine feeling the wind, the quiet, the vastness of it all. And perhaps you can imagine walking alongside one of those mountain paths and notice any insights, thoughts, or feelings that arise. Because some sections of a mountain are wide and easy, and other sections narrow, almost like walking along a ridge, a thin path between two slopes. But feel the stability of that mountain goat. Connect with feeling balanced, focused, present. That's it. Connect with a feeling of absolute stability, even though you are walking on a path that some people call the razor's edge. Not dangerous for someone who walks carefully with that stability. Not frightening for someone who understands balance. Because the razor's edge is simply the place where clarity and confidence lives. The place where a person walks forward without being pulled by anger on one side, or the resignation of that weak acceptance on the other. Just steady, balanced. And as you imagine walking along this mountain path, you might notice that earlier in the journey, there were moments of frustration, moments where anger appeared. And maybe that anger was about unfairness, someone's behavior being unreasonable, disrespectful, entitled, or just exploitative. And when someone tries to take advantage, any anger sometimes is reasonable, because anger is not weakness. Anger can be energy. When something you value is being violated, something you hold to be true is being misconstrued or exploited, perhaps the mind's way of saying something matters, something deserves protection. And the problem about anger is never anger itself. The emotion is fine. It can only be a problem with what people do with that anger. Some people explode with it, and some people suppress it. And I want you to tap into the third option. The third option is discipline. Because a person walking along a mountain ridge doesn't waste energy shouting at the wind, and they don't allow themselves to just fall. They simply place the next step carefully, steadily, forward. And as you continue walking along this ridge, give permission to feel a change. That anger that once felt heavy Anger that led you to feeling unbalanced begins to transform. And not disappearing, just transforming. Like a fire that once burned wildly, being placed inside a furnace. Feel the focus, the energy being contained, harnessed and useful. That fire of anger now becomes clarity, strength, resolve, and boundaries. Because dealing with difficult or entitled people doesn't require rage. It requires structure, evidence, sometimes documentation or calm confidence, with a quiet knowledge and belief that truth still matters. What's true is more important than what someone believes. And as you continue walking along the ridge, the razor's edge, notice that behind you is the place you are leaving. That apartment with space you never used. The landlord causing difficulty, the conflict or tension. And as you think back from this vantage point, something becomes clear. That chapter of your life was never meant to be permanent. It was simply a crossing point, a stepping stone. Perhaps a place where you learned about resilience, about fairness, that you achieved something magnificent that you had set out to do, publishing a book and making it available to the world. All of that matters. But you also learned about how to stand your ground without losing your balance, without resorting to unnecessary anger or rage. The feeling is fine if it's harnessed in the right way. And ahead of you now, the path begins to widen. The razor's edge, the ridge, opens into a valley. A new place. A new home. Not just physically, but energetically. Because when someone moves homes, they aren't only changing walls and furniture, they're changing the atmosphere and the very ambience of their life. A wonderful reset, a recalibration, a lighter chapter. And as you begin walking toward that new place, maybe you notice how the body feels lighter, clearer, less entangled. Because you realize you don't need to carry resentment or frustration into the next chapter. You can carry something far more powerful. Self-respect, inner strength, the ability to say that I am compassionate, but I am no pushover. I am fair, but I am not weak. I can understand people without allowing them to take advantage of me. And that balance is the razor's edge. And perhaps you can imagine arriving at the front door of your new apartment. The door opens. A blank canvas, a clean slate, the ability to make it exactly as you wanted. Because when a space is empty, it can be designed intentionally, just like a new phase of life, where you decide what belongs there and what gets left behind, what energy enters what habits grow, what seeds you're planting to bear fruit in the future. And as you imagine walking around that space, notice how calm it feels. This move is not a retreat or a setback. It's a transition, a step forward. And with the money you save, you create freedom, adventures and travel. And when you travel to those places in Japan or Switzerland, it will come from a place of discernment. You chose this to facilitate what you value more. And as you allow yourself to feel that you are on the brink of a new chapter, an empowering phase, a springboard into wonderful new opportunities, it's time to return. And you return with all of those resources coming with you. So take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your nose. Wiggle your fingers and wiggle your toes, connect and calibrate into the here and the now, as I now count from 1 to 10 to awaken you. Starting to count. 1, 2, 3, waking up. 4, 5, 6, more alert. 7, 8, open your eyes, open your eyes. 9, 10, wide awake, wide awake, wide awake.